Well, the Food on Demand conference is right around the corner, May 5th through 7th at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, and we can't wait to see you all there. Day one will feature an incredibly insightful conversation with these two. This is Adam Brotman and Andy Sack of Forum 3. And they've spent the last year speaking and interviewing to tech leaders like Sam Altman and Bill Gates, and are authors of AI First. And so, Andy and Adam, we're so excited to have you. What can attendees expect on stage for this session, and why is it important for the restaurant industry?
Well, I spent most of my career in the food service industry, and as a digital leader and partnering with Andy now, we've really gotten into trying to cut through the noise on AI. I'm sure everybody at the conference, all they hear about is AI this, AI that. And, we wrote a book about the whole topic of how can you as an individual leader really cut through the noise and practically take advantage of this technology, not just for your company, but even for yourself as a leader. So that's a lot of what you're gonna experience from our keynote is, we're gonna give real world use case examples of clients that we work with that have actually successfully been able to harness AI for their own leadership goals and to help build their company and their brands.
And our hope is that you'll leave our session with clarity, not just about what you can do as a business, but what you can do as an exec to get strategic advantage for your business and your career. And for those of you that sort of are just beginning the journey in AI, we'll also help you point you in the direction of where to start, how to get started, so that it's not so overwhelming.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it here first, and we're excited to bring your insights to the stage, and I hope to see you all there. Okay, now it is time for our guest interview with Jim Rand. He is the CEO and founder of Rand Parker Group. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Bernadette. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'd really like to thank Food on Demand for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're super glad to have you. Jim has decades of experience kind of scaling and catering operations for some major brands, and we'll definitely get into some of that in today's episode. He's also been doing a guest series for us on Food on Demand called The Catering Journey, and has had a lot of great insight from his time and advice to operators, so definitely check that out. But first, Jim, I would love to get to know you more. Can you give me a bit about your background and what led you into your current role?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've worked in restaurants my whole life, actually, going on 50 years, I guess, if you include high school. First job, worked in restaurants and bars when I was in college for spending money. And coming right out of college, I had the opportunity to go to work for Obon Pen, which was one of the first ventures that Ron Shaich, actually technically the first food venture that Ron Shaich was involved in way back in the early 1980s, and have just loved it and been able to work my way up in my career and held a lot of various positions. But it's just, it's an industry that I love because it's all about the people, and both the people you work with and the customers, and, providing service and the challenges that go along with it. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of those roles you've held. And I also love that you mentioned you started out in the restaurant industry. It's always great to highlight some leaders now who actually grew up working in them. So that's great. And just quickly, your current role with the Rand Parker Group, can you kind of tell me about what that is and how it came about?
Yeah, well, when I kind of went out on my own back at the end of 2022, I started doing consulting on my own. And then sometime during the middle of the year in 2023, I recrossed paths with Jennifer Parker, who's someone I've known for several years. And she had her own business and was doing some branding consulting. And she also had a lot of people that were reaching out to her for catering because she has experience working in restaurants. And she worked with Zoe's Kitchen and helped them build their catering program way back in the early 2010s. And we always had a good relationship. And so we decided that we could kind of put our two backgrounds together. And, she's got a lot of talents and things that she's great at that I'm not so good at. And so that we decided to form Rand Parker. And it's just the two of us. And then we brought in several friends of ours who have worked with us in the businesses over the years and who come on a consulting basis as we need them to help clients.
Yeah, and I'm sure, catering's always been a major part of restaurants, and now it's even bigger, it seems, been ramping up in the past few years. So I'm sure you're busy over there with consulting. But let's get into some of your background. So something you talked quite a bit about in some of those articles you wrote for us was your time at Panera. And knowing that you helped grow their successful catering program, then what are some of the key things that made that happen, and how did you approach change over time?
Yeah, great question. So I got involved in catering when I was my first involvement with Panera was as a Panera Bread franchisee. I had two partners who were the money backers, and then I ran the restaurants for them. We built and owned and operated 27 locations over about a 7-year period. And honestly, catering came to us. There was a lot of demand for Panera catering. We had a lot of businesses and pharmaceutical reps that would come to us and say, "Hey, can we get a platter of sandwiches?" And this was the early 2000s, and Panera at the time didn't have a catering program. So we just kind of put one together on our own. Several other franchisees did the same thing. We were able to really help add to our top line revenue and therefore our bottom line as well by including catering. And that really kind of led me to a point. We sold our restaurants back to the company, and in 2007, I joined Panera Bread as their VP of catering. And so it was a fun transition, a good transition, and it was really that learning that I had as a franchisee that helped me then help the company. The company had started a catering program by that time, but there was a lot of work still to be done to grow it into the business that it really became.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's great that you started as a franchisee and then went into the VP of catering. What were some things that you brought forward as far as operational side? I'm sure it looks quite different now than when you were there back then, but anything you can add to that since it was from the ground up, really?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we learned a couple of things on the franchise side that I then was able to help translate to the company side. One of them was really around the idea of having sales managers and having people that were going out and calling on businesses and creating relationships. Because back in the early 2000s, there was no online ordering for catering. It didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so all orders were taken over the phone or by fax, by email, and that was pretty much how you got your orders. And because of that, you had to have good relationships with the clients. So when I joined Panera Bread, they had some people that were out doing some calling on customers, but it was more from a marketing perspective, like an LSM type program. And it wasn't really a serious sales program. So that was one of the first things we did is we started to really transform it into a sales program. I think the other thing that, we learned on the franchise side when I was there is that you have to really strike a balance between catering sales coming in and your ability to produce those catering orders. And so we went through the school of hard knocks for a few years until we figured out what our staffing should look like in order to handle those catering sales that come in because they're very inconsistent, right? Days of week, weeks of year, months of year. There's a lot of volatility to the trend of those sales. It's not as consistent as what you would see in restaurant. And so we really had to spend a lot of time thinking about how to manage that. And so when I got to Panera, corporate, that was one of the things that we actually spent a lot of time working on and helping the operators understand that they had to make an investment on the front side on labor. And it's always hard to convince people to invest in labor when they don't see an immediate return on that investment. But I think it helped that I was a franchisee and that I was able to use that credibility and show them what we were able to do that helped not only our company operators start to embrace it, but then the rest of the franchisees within the community. Those are probably the two biggest things. I think Panera had done a great job with menu, and they had put together a nice menu. And we did some things to revise it and respond more to what the consumer wanted as well. And with that, it started to become really successful for us and become a major part of the business.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you for that background. And how long were you with Panera for?
So on the franchise side, I was a franchisee from 2000 to 2007, and then I joined the company in 2007 and left in 2016, a total of almost 16 years, a little
Yeah.
under 16. Yeah. So it was a good time to be there. And it was while Panera was really up and coming and growing across the country and really turning into a national brand. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And so something else you've mentioned to me is your time at PF Chang's. Can you tell me a bit about that as well, and any learnings from Panera you brought there and just your overall strategies that you found might work?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking back on that. I thought I knew what the structure of it should look like. Again, sales and operations and making sure that we had the right menu. But I was a little naive at the time in terms of being able to just transition everything from Panera over to PF Chang's because it's a different menu, it's a different clientele base. And the biggest menu difference was that 80% of the food was hot, whereas at Panera, 90% of the food was cold. And so when you're doing catering production that and setup and delivery, the expectations around hot food versus cold food are significantly different. And we had to do a lot of work on the production systems at PF Chang's in order to expand the catering program there. And we also had to really work with the operators. The great thing was at PF Chang's is that we had all this excess capacity, right? The restaurants weren't that busy at lunch, but we didn't have a lot of excess labor. And so it was a real fun challenge helping the restaurants understand how to staff for it, what needed to change, and how they needed to think about things differently in terms of their prep processes and having people in the building a little bit earlier in the morning and being able to work with delivery and manage delivery because we were doing a lot of self-delivery still at the time.
Mhm.
So it was an interesting and fun challenge. We were able to bring over in essence all the thinking around sales and sales managers. We built a very nice sales team there, which was great. And we were able to take advantage of data much earlier on in the process. And when I was at Panera, we really didn't have a lot of good data around catering when I joined the company in 2007. And we ended up doing an integration with Salesforce.com. And we integrated that directly in with our POS and back office systems, which gave us a lot of data that helped us manage the business and become much more successful. And we were able to take a lot of that thinking into PF Chang's and help them be more successful faster. And they didn't have to go through all the same type of learnings that we went through at Panera, which was good.
Sure. Yeah, and transitioning into your advisory role, I'm sure, so many learnings that you gained from not only Panera, but PF Chang's. And I kind of want to shift to current time now and things that you're hearing from operators or advice you're giving to them as they try to scale their catering business. That's a loaded question depending on the brand, of course, but you mentioned customer data. That's obviously huge now with online ordering for catering. Just tell me about some of the top nuggets you're hearing when it comes to advice for operators or best advice for their current catering.
Sure. I think that what we have been running into predominantly is that there's a lot of brands that want to grow catering. So there's a desire for it, but there's a lack of understanding of a couple of things. One is the commitment that they need to make in terms of getting their entire C-suite behind it so that big or small company, doesn't matter, right? If it's a really small company, it's the owner. The owner is the C-suite, but they need to embrace what catering is, and they need to make sure that they invest in it and understand that it's going to take time for those investments to bear fruit. And primarily, again, what we see is that a lot of these brands need to spend a lot of time working on their menu as it translates into catering. What travels? What doesn't travel? What does packaging look like? What should it look like? What should the delivered experience be? What kind of branding should they use for catering upon delivery? That's a big part of it. And there's a lot of opportunity there for brands to think about. There's a lot of opportunity around their own internal capabilities and where are you going to make this food, right? If it's we'll make one up. What if it's ice cream? How do you keep ice cream cold, right? How do you keep it frozen? How do you produce it ahead of time? How do you do large orders? How do you transport it? Again, what kind of containers should that come in? And it's one thing to do an ice cream cone or a cup of ice cream for people that are in line in front of you. It's a whole nother thing to do 50 of them, right? And get it out the door on time and make sure that it's delivered appropriately. We try to take a real strategic approach and think through the entire business from, again, what what do you want from this? What's your goal? What's your commitment? Your menu into what are your capabilities? What can you and can't you do? Do you have the technology? Do you have people? And then what are your execution systems? Because it's different. They're big orders and they don't go out the door the same way that individual orders do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such great advice and why I wanted to have you on because it is a whole ecosystem and it's difficult for every brand. It's not an easy lift for sure. You mentioned catering tech, and I'd like to get into that as that's a really big topic this year and the past few years. And we're actually hosting a catering tech uncoded panel at the upcoming Food on Demand conference because it's something we keep hearing from operators about what do we do, what kind of tech do we actually need, and how do we streamline that. What kind of tech do you think restaurants should be using to run their catering operations smoothly? Any advice on that end?
There is the platform, I refer to it as a catering management platform. And that's every brand that wants to be serious about executing catering within a given restaurant or across their enterprise needs to have a, what's the right word? The glue in the middle that holds all the processes together. So catering management platforms help you with the sales side, right? Because it's a place for your sales managers to enter orders or for your online orders to come into. Everything gets compiled. And then it moves from there into the management of that within the restaurant, right? So the scheduling, the timing, the production systems, and everything that goes along with that. And then into delivery dispatch and how it gets out the door, and then into billing. You hear a lot today, house accounts are a hot item, right? And have been for a while about how do we set customers up so they can pay us through an on-account type process. And having a catering management platform that actually handles all of that for you is critical if you really want to scale, right? If you want to take this from being a couple of orders a week to 10, 15, 20 orders a day. And you need that type of technology to do that. Now, there's a lot of companies out there that have some of that. Some have more than others. I don't know that I should probably sell for any one of them today, but there are a number of systems out there. And again, some of them were designed more with cut from an online ordering small order process, right? If you think of the Toasts and the Olos of the world, right, and their systems and the way that they were set up. And so they come at catering a little bit more from that perspective. There's some other platforms out there that come at it much more from a catering, like a true caterer perspective, right? Somebody who's doing banquets and very large events. And so everything is built around these kind of heavy production engines that do all of the cranking of the math around, okay, we're going to have 500 people and we need this much turkey and this much chicken. And what needs to happen, right, for most restaurant companies is a combination of the two, right? So that it has good order management on one end and good production management on the other end, and those two things come together. There's a lot of folks dabbling around this, and there's people that have gotten into it. And I think for any operator out there, they should do their due diligence, and they should, again, call me if you want to. I'm happy to discuss with you all the different pros and cons and put you in contact with the right people because you should do your own due diligence for what really works for your brand. I think that's really the biggest piece of technology. The online ordering side of it, right, the front end of it has come a long way. The pandemic really helped drive that, and now there's all kinds of online ordering out there. But again, so you should have that. You have to have that today. If you don't have online ordering for catering, you're not really in the business, right? But it can't just stop there. It has to flow into the rest of your system, and then it has to obviously go all the way out the other end to dispatch and delivery and connecting to delivery companies and delivery technologies that can get the order to the right place at the right time.
And that's definitely certainly changed a lot since the pandemic. Thinking about third-party delivery and how that's how a lot of restaurants do leverage their catering for the drivers. But then again, there's smaller companies or other outlets that restaurants can collaborate with for actual delivery fulfillment. Any advice on that front when it comes to delivery fulfillment and what you're seeing with restaurants partner with third party and or some do it themselves in-house if they can?
Yeah, I think that if you're a smaller independent or if you're a franchisee with one or two units, you're probably better off utilizing a marketplace that has delivery dispatch capabilities associated with it or is in partnership with one of the delivery dispatch companies out there. And again, there's a number of them as well. Some of them most of them do a really good job. There's pros and cons. Some are better in certain regions than others. So again, you got to do a little bit of your due diligence on that from a delivery dispatch point of view. But if you really want to grow catering big, I think you need to look at self-delivery and taking ownership of that. And there's a lot of barriers to that, right? Finding team members that you can trust, that have dependable vehicles, that show up on time for work, and they do a good job driving and getting the orders there, to the insurance that goes along with it, and just all the compliance that you have to do around it. But the reason I say that is because you can control the process and the experience for the guest when you do your own delivery. And again, some of the third-party delivery companies that are out there today do a better job with that than others, but most of them still employ gig drivers, and those gig drivers turn over. And so you, as a restaurateur, you don't have a consistent person doing your delivery to the same client that may be ordering from you. And when those clients get inconsistent experiences, they start to maybe think differently about whether they want to continue to do business with you. We've literally, in my past, I've literally had large clients that we've worked with in multiple businesses, Panera, Chang's, et cetera, who have come to us and said, if you use blank, okay, for delivery, I am not going to order from you anymore, because they had so many bad experiences with blank, not only with our company, but having deliveries from other companies. So I think that controlling that experience is huge, because catering is a relationship business. And if you can build relationships and create reliability, then people will come back and order from you. And that's how it grows, just like your in-restaurant business grows the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It is more when catering, it's usually for an event or something like that. And it's just a whole different experience than a one-off order for somebody ordering at home, definitely. So we talked about marketplaces a bit. I wanted to pick your brain on also, platforms like Easy Cater, and there are others that are really big right now for visibility. How important do you see that as well for restaurants when it comes to being found, in the competitive marketplace?
Yeah, no, I think marketplaces have a place in the market. I think that they belong here. As a business owner and operator, you have to, again, do your due diligence and understand what it is that you're signing up for and what the cost of that is, and also what the benefit is associated with that cost. But they do a great job, Cater in particular, because they're the biggest on the catering side of things. They do a great job bringing you business. They bring you sales, and yes, you pay for that, but then they also help you facilitate delivery through their own internal delivery dispatch processes that they use. And they gather a lot of data, and they can help you with that. They help you with menu management. They give you suggestions on what sells and what doesn't. You talk about data, right? They've done billions of dollars worth of sales over the last, whatever it is, 15, 20 years now that they've been in business. And they have so much data that they can come back to you and say, if you would just tweak your menu just a little bit this way, that's going to give you more sales. And there's other, I don't want to call them marketplaces per se, but third-party services out there that do catering concierge services. And they also can provide really large, valuable orders for you. So I think for me, if you're starting out in catering, I think it's a great way to prime the pump and get it going. But I don't think you should become dependent upon it either. And the reason I say that is because over time, if you're on Easy Cater, for instance, you're on there with several hundred other restaurants in your local area, tens of thousands of restaurants across the country that people can choose from, and you'll get your share, but at some point it tends to kind of cap out, and you don't see a lot of incremental growth from that. And I think the way to fuel your incremental growth is actually by driving your own program, right? Looking at having your own sales managers, and looking at doing your own self-delivery, and you're doing your own promotion, and having your own online ordering platform, and getting direct orders. Again, I think they're important, and I think you should work with them. But I think you should go in eyes wide open and know what you're signing up for.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I say so much is no one size fits all solution. So definitely, like you said, do the due diligence for your best strategies. That answered my next question, which was about how to stay competitive today in catering. Anything else you want to mention on that front?
Look, if you want to be competitive in catering, I think there's a few critical things, and I've kind of mentioned it throughout our conversation. But to be competitive in catering, you have to have a very clear and differentiated offering, but that is of your brand. So that's number one, right? Something that's true to your brand, so that if somebody enjoys your restaurant when they order catering from you, they should get an experience and a quality of food that's very similar to what they would get if they walked in the door and sat down at the table or got a delivered order. So I think that's really critical. I think the second thing is making sure that you make an investment in your capabilities, right? You got to have people who are passionate about it, who can help you sell it, can help you produce it, can help you deliver it and get it out the door. And I think you really need to make sure that you take advantage of the technology and partnerships that are out there through online ordering, through the catering management platform that I referred to earlier, and then utilizing delivery dispatch and marketplaces to help you kind of grow your business and get it off the ground. But it really starts with the first point, though. It's about having a differentiated menu. When I had the opportunity to go talk, like at the NRA show or at Food on Demand, and I've been able to be in front of an audience, there's a lot of salads out there, and there's a lot of sandwiches out there. And why does somebody want to buy yours? At Panera, Ron Shake always used to say, if we build a Panera here, why would people in this strip center or at the end cap on this strip center, why would people walk past all the other restaurants that are there? Why would they come to Panera? What differentiates us? What makes us unique? And I think that's the thing you got to count on is make yourself unique, make a really good product, and then execute it consistently, and so that people will come back to you and they know that you're reliable when you place an order.
Yeah, that was such a great recap. And we're already almost on our time, Jim, which is crazy, but this has been great. And I encourage anyone listening to check out those articles he wrote for us on Food on Demand. He breaks a lot of this down for you as well that we talked about. Just a few fun questions to wrap up, Jim, outside of your role. I would love to get to know you more. So can you tell me what are some things that you like to do for fun outside of work, or what can we find you doing on maybe on a weekend?
Sure. My wife and I, as well as with our adult children, we all love food. We love to go find great restaurants, and we enjoy good food and with lots of flavors and all the different types of cuisine, and we love to try that. For me personally, you'll find me on a golf course generally on one of the weekend days because I really do love to play the game of golf. And we do a little bit of traveling in the US, but we're going to start branching out. We have a trip planned coming up in May to go over to Europe and visit a couple of different parts of France. So that'll be fun. And hopefully we'll do a little bit more of that in the future as well. And I love college sports. I'm a University of Wisconsin grad. I'm a Badger. I'm a cheesehead. I grew up in Wisconsin. And I love anything about the Wisconsin Badgers. So I follow many of their sports, from women's hockey and volleyball to obviously men's football and basketball. So I'm pretty passionate about Wisconsin sports.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Anything else you want to mention that you're looking forward to? Any shows? This could be related to work or outside.
I'm really looking forward to coming to Food on Demand in May in Las Vegas. I think that's always fun. For me, going to shows like that, I get to see a lot of old friends and acquaintances from the past, and get to talk a little business and have some fun and learn some good things from all the different presenters that are there. So I'm looking forward to that trip. And I have a couple golf trips coming up, actually, believe it or not, one in April and one in August. And so I'm looking forward. Actually, the one in April is with 15 of my old Panera cohorts. There's 16 of us, and we're all going on a golf trip together. Kind of like an annual Panera reunion. This is my first one, but they've done it a few years in a row now.
Great.
Yeah, so that's what's on my schedule coming up.
Well, that's awesome, Jim. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for all the advice. Anyone listening will be at Food on Demand. I'm sure Jim would be happy to connect with you there and talk to you in person. So thank you again for being on the podcast, and I look forward to connecting again soon.
Thank you, Bernadette. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.